As Halloween Day is approaching, we have to conclude the theme of monsters with two particular figures. For today's video, we are going to begin with reviewing Nekron from Blackest Night. Now, who is Nekron? The simple understanding of Nekron is that he is the embodiment of death. He is basically what that word is represented in a physical manner. And this is where the data profile card will come in handy to explain who he is for those of you who have never heard of this character. There is an image of the art, and it is very beautiful. I do like the way that looks. It is also in the comic book for Blackest Night. And on the back it reads, real name, Nekron. A dark entity as old as time itself, Nekron is known as the Lord of the Unliving. As the physical manifestation of death, he can summon the dead to serve him. Looking to control the land of the living, Nekron started influencing William Hand, aka Black Hand, down a dark path from a young age. After his death, William was bestowed the first Black Lantern ring and resurrected as a Black Lantern. William became Nekron's herald and released Black Lantern rings upon the universe, feeling the power needed to bring forth Nekron to the plane of existence and snuff out life as we know it. So basically, this is how the events of Blackest Night starts. This character is basically the benefactor, the individual that influences the Blackest Night main antagonist character to start this chaos in the universe as the War of Light is happening between the other Lantern Corps. And this threat from somewhere out of nowhere just happens. And you've heard the phrase Blackest Night before if you've learned of the Green Lantern and their prophecy of the Blackest Night. And this is basically what that is, I guess, in the definition of that prophecy. So, because before, I didn't even know what that meant, what, the Blackest Night actually means, but this story basically sums it up. So, if that is the actual meaning to what that prophecy is. Because, as you know, certain things change in comics, so nothing stays the same forever. As for what this mega figure comes with, well, Nekron does include one accessory, and of course he had to include this. He does come with a scythe, and on that scythe you can see a lantern battery. So, very nice. It is supposed to be made out of wood, as you can see the painting on it. It's supposed to mimic wood. Hopefully that focuses in. There you go. And the scythe is also just painted the same color. Not a bad accessory for a character like this, especially since this is the type of weapon he has on him. It's supposed to represent that he is a Grim Reaper of some sort, right? Like, he is basically death itself. It is kind of flimsy, though. Unfortunately, the plastic quality is like every other accessory that Mcfarlane has been making ever since they went this direction. So, the chance of it warping during the summer heat is possible if you have them out with this. So, just be aware of that. But very nice accessory to include, of course, and he does hold it. But before we show him holding it, let's look at the figure's aesthetic. So from a zoom out point, he is a very tall figure. I would say he's like tall enough, but honestly, for his scale, he can be as tall as he can be, I guess, because if you look at this artwork, you clearly can tell he's bigger than that. But of course, in action figure form, you cannot make him too oversized because at that point, no one can afford the figure, right? So you have to make him at least reasonably taller than a regular DC figure. So in this case, if we were to grab a particular figure like Deathstorm and compare the two of them together, I would say that's okay. Maybe if the scale seems off, if he's not actually that short in the comics, it's there, but I mean, what can you do if you want a figure like this to go on your shelf? If they make it way too big, it'll be too expensive. So scale-wise, it's not that bad. As for the aesthetics to this figure, I do like the way that this came out, especially the chest area. As you can see, the chest cavity, he does have a heart in the middle of his rib cage. It is really crazy how that's detailed. I like the way that that came out. His face is also really nicely painted and sculpted. I do like the whole skeleton vibe looking thing because he is supposed to represent, you know, the end. Now, one thing he does not have, in some images, they do show him with chains coming down from these the neck thing that he has on his that he wears, I guess. They didn't include that. So if you have chain accessories that you've bought from other figure lines that can attach to this, you could put those on him for fun if you want him to look accurate. Sadly, Mcfarlane did not include that on this figure, so not even sculpting any of that on here. You can also see the texture on his suit. It is, again, there is texture on here, right? Now, one thing I will say is that some of it is a little bit glossy, so it's not that good. But again, very nice that it is textured regardless, because it's better than leaving it flat. And on top of that, you have his skin tone, which also looks like it's rotted flesh. So it does capture that whole vibe of, you know, he's not a living entity that represents life. He is an entity that represents death. So, and on top of that, if we look back at his head sculpt, you can see the Black Lantern logo. That is basically their emblem. And this is the avatar who represents the Black Lantern energy. So, very nice in terms of the aesthetics in that area. But that is basically it when it comes to the figure in terms of the paint and stuff. He does have, you know, details in the hands and fingernails, but there's not a whole lot going on there. As for his legs, I guess, let's also show that too. He does have this like grid pattern, so he is wearing some sort of pants of some kind, but that's basically it for Nekron when it comes to aesthetics. Not a bad figure. Honestly, one of the coolest mega figures I think they've released if you're a fan of this line. And you're also a fan of course, the Green Lantern story with the whole Blackest Night event. This is definitely a figure that is very captivating to have and also represents the theme of Halloween very well in terms of that spookiness. In terms of articulation, though, this figure is okay. Understand that he's not really meant for crazy action poses because, you know, in the comics, he doesn't really, like, do anything crazy per se with his scythe. I think he does fight, if I remember correctly, a little bit, but he's basically always having servants help him, right? I mean, he is supposed to be the Lord of Death. He doesn't need to do the dirty work himself. So that is why this figure, in terms of like getting him into action poses, probably not the best idea. And the first thing that I will point out right away is the fact that you have this piece down here. It is soft, but it's not able to give all the way. So if you want his legs to spread out, that is not happening. If you want his legs to kick out, this will hinder the legs from kicking out. He does have double articulation, as you can see. They do work. But again, his leg articulation is kind of neutral because he's just meant to stand with his scythe. He's not meant to be doing any crazy action poses unless you actually want him to. He does have sculpted ball joints, which is nice on the mega figure. So his leg articulation is pretty self-standard. It's simple, and it's not going to give you much range, unfortunately. For his arms, they do lift up, right? Like your basic DC Multiverse figure. They do have double jointed, which is very nice for a figure like this because he is a mega figure. So there's that. He does have the shoulder swivel. I believe it works better on this side. I guess they're both kind of tight, but they do work. He does have articulation on the head. However, this piece hinders his articulation. So you're not going to make him look up too much. You're not going to make him look down. You can have him turn side to side, tilt side to side. But unfortunately, he's not going to be staring up into the sky. He is a very, very neutral sort of figure where he's supposed to just stand and pose in one way. That's how I see this figure. If you're able to get him to pose in like crazy action poses, I guess you can also do that too. But for me, he's pretty much supposed to be very neutral in his stance. Now, he does not include any additional hands, so the only hand that he can grip his scythe is only on this hand. And it is made out of soft goods, so the hands are not like super stiff where you can't fit it in. But because it is a hassle, I'm going to just put this on like this. So I slide it in from the bottom. This is how I do it. There's different ways to put this on him. But yeah, I just slide it on him, and now he has it in his hand. And as you can see, that's what he looks like with the scythe, which is very nice because it captures what he is, right? He is the Lord of the Unliving. He is basically, you could call him a death god, because that's basically what he is. Now, how does he go with the other Black Lanterns? Well, I brought him in one video before, but the way that I had that camera angle was set wasn't that good. So let's bring in the other characters from this line, or this particular wave, I mean. But also, yeah, from this line. So you have the previous Black Lanterns that we looked at, and you also have, there we go. Let's put them together. Yeah. You got all three of them down here, and you have them in the back. And that makes for a very good display, especially if you like lanterns. I love the lantern mythos, and having at least these three with Nekron is just a nice touch to the shelf. It makes for a fun display, and it just makes me wish that there were more Black Lantern figures. I honestly wish that they release more, and I hope they do. Because I did see in a comic panel, and I was looking at photos before this review, just out of like, you know, curiosity to look back at some of the characters that were Black Lanterns. Martian Manhunter is in this, right? He's also a Black Lantern. And it would have been cool if they made a, you know, Black Lantern version of Martian Manhunter. They did release that black and white version, I think, a while ago. It was like a Big Bad Toy Store exclusive. That's not him as a Black Lantern, but I guess if you want to use that as a proxy, if you had that, you could say it's him as a Black Lantern. I mean, it kind of matches what he looks like in the comic. I mean, his flesh tone in the comic was not green when he came back. Or maybe it was. I'm kind of forgetting now. But, well, however you want to try to, you know, mix it, if they made previous Black Lanterns, you could do that too. So, but yeah, for a mega figure like this, it really does capture the Halloween spirit. And this is probably one of my favorite mega figures in terms of simplicity, and also in terms of capturing a theme for a certain set of figures. And with that said, I hope you enjoyed this review. I hope you enjoyed this look at Nekron and understand a little bit of who Nekron is, because that battle card already gave us everything we needed to know about him. And if you do want this figure, I believe he is still out there. Probably you can get him for cheap. I don't know. It's been a long time. But yeah. With that said, if you like this video, give it a like. If you want to subscribe to my channel, you can also subscribe. You don't have to. And with that, take care, and I will see you in the last video for the theme of monsters. Take care.